This is a hard video to make because I don't know what the solution is, but I can identify the problem pretty clearly, which is that if you have a lot of wealthy people moving abroad to other countries, wealthy relatively speaking, so upper middle class and above, moving to countries that are less expensive, then what does that do to the local economies in the countries that people are moving into? So, before we get into it, my name is Alex, and I have lived and worked in 35 countries around the world. I'm currently based in Spain, but in this moment, I am in Da Nang, Vietnam, which you can kind of see. Let's see if I can get a little bit of a. I'm at the beach right now. And I run a community called Escape America. We're a community of Americans helping each other move abroad. If you're curious about moving abroad, I encourage you to join the community. We share resources, we share processes. It's a very friendly community. I'm very active on there. Um, so yeah, let's get into it. So the privilege problem. So I, as an American person who has lived abroad and gone to different countries, when I arrive, with a much higher purchasing power than the local economy can handle, and I'm happy to pay double or triple the rental price that is average in a community, then that has the net effect of increasing the cost of living of everybody that lives there. And like I said, I don't know what the solution is, and it's a hard problem. I remember when I was living in Mexico, I lived in Mexico for a couple of years. I was in Playa del Carmen, and I was renting a place it was a 2-bedroom place, 10-minute walk from the beach, fully furnished, private pool, very nice. I was paying about $1,000 a month, all included, and very happy living there. But I knew that I was already paying maybe double what the local economy, what a local family could pay. I was already paying double. A few months after I moved in, there was another guy who moved in to the floor above us, and we were hanging out, and he leaned over to me and he was like, "Hey, how much are you guys paying?" And I told him, "Oh, we're paying about $1,000 a month." And he said, "Oh, I'm paying $2,000 a month." And so for him, it was no problem to pay $2,000 a month. And so if you look at it from the property owner's perspective, like, of course they're gonna want to rent the place out for 4 times the normal rates, instead of renting it to a local family that can only pay $500 a month. So you can see how this has the effect of driving out local families, because now they can't find places there and they have to move away. And so the more subtle problem that happens, that people don't notice, but it's obvious over time, is that this is how great cities get ruined. I've been working remotely for about 15 years. So in that time, I've seen a lot of cities and countries come and go as like very popular destinations, trendy, popular destinations. And then the hype kind of becomes its own worst enemy. A lot of people end up going, and then they say things like, "Oh, I didn't get all the hype. It was overpriced. It was too busy. It was very touristy." And people who originally found it say, "Well, yeah, it wasn't like that 5 or 10 years ago." The problem when something gets overly mass commercialized like that is that then, the cities kind of lose their soul. The thing that made them popular in the first place, that made people attracted to them, is usually the people who live there and the communities that were formed there. And when people like me end up moving in, paying much higher rents, able to pay much higher prices for food and for everything else, the cost of living increases, people get driven out. I mean, this is just classic gentrification stuff. They get driven out, and then what replaces that is an over commercialization of everything in the city. So it becomes a very performative sort of environment, and the cities kind of lose their soul a bit, you know. And that's a hard thing. I lived in Barcelona for 3 years, and that was a big problem there as well. The big touristy spots in Barcelona are just, no locals live there, no locals are hanging around there. It's just all for tourists and for people that are coming to visit. So it's a very tough issue. it's a problem. What complicates the problem is that, of course, there is the local tourism economy that really appreciates the outside tourist money coming in, right? Like all these businesses, they wouldn't make like, look at this little restaurant like right in front of the beach. Like, they're very grateful that there's a bunch of foreigners and tourists coming in and they're able to make a living and have a thriving business and they're able to pay, hire local employees and things like that. So it's a complex problem to try to like figure out and try to fix. And I also think like, is this just the curse of popularity? Is it just is it just a way of life that something that gets very popular, it's going to attract a lot of attention, a lot of people are going to come to it, and the act of putting a lot of attention on the place makes it not as cool anymore, right? I mean, you see that with people climbing Everest, for example, where now it's just so over, it's just such a massive touristic thing that it's not the experience that it was 30, 40 years ago, which felt like real conquest. Like I said, I don't know what the solution is. What I recommend to Americans who are thinking of moving abroad is to have some idea of how they're going to integrate into the communities that they're moving into. Obviously the easiest one is the language, right? Like if you're planning on moving to Italy, plan on spending 1 or 2 years to learn the language, because one, it's going to make it a much greater experience, more fulfilling experience for you, and two, it's going to be an easier way to integrate into the local economy, into the local people. I'm a big proponent of traveling to understand the world better. I even have a TED talk about how much travel is great for personal growth. So I'm a big proponent of this. And I know that a lot of you are curious about moving abroad and living abroad, and this is just something to keep in mind about the extremely lucky position that a lot of us find ourselves in to be able to pick up and move, and also not wanting to create a negative situation in the countries that we're moving to. I created this Escape America community to help people make an easy transition abroad. So if you're curious about moving abroad, I highly encourage you to join it. So let me know your thoughts. I'm happy to answer all the comments. I'm also here to help. I want people to make the smoothest transition possible into these countries. So let me know if you have any questions. Like I said, you're welcome to join the Escape America community. The links are all in the descriptions of this video, wherever you're watching it. And I think that's it for now. I will see you later. I need to come up with a cool like YouTube type of goodbye, but for now, thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.